and the Board of Commissioners as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as a Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Clerk of the board, we have roll call, please.
Commissionernevaker.
Here.
Commissioner Webb.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Quila.
He's here, I see him.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Commissioner Thompson would move to approve the agenda.
Commissioner Webb, second.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Okay, all those, we're all in favor. It passes unanimously. And now we're going to move on to the proclamations. We have two proclamations tonight. The first one is the Veterans Service Week's proclamation. And I just wanted to say, I was thinking, you know, we've had several weeks with the national election. We were all thinking about all the different branches of government, the legislature, the Supreme Court, and the presidency, but also, of course, another very important part of our government is our military. And as Commissioner Thompson brought to my attention earlier, that she herself has some service, as does her husband. Do we have anybody else here who has served in the armed forces? Could you raise your hand? Or if they've had family members serve. It's a little hard with. All right, well, very good, thank you. Stephen, are you available now to do the information on the Veterans Services Proclamation? Wasn't he going to do something, or was that in the work session? Am I mistaken?
Well, no, I don't see him any longer, which is too bad. He may have thought that it was at the 5 o'clock, but I don't see him on the call.
Well, County Manager, could you just say a couple words about our new Veterans Services Officer before we go into this? Because I would have liked to have had him speak, but I think we didn't make it clear to him. I'm sorry.
Well, that's, I mean, sorry, I will certainly step in. I think that, you know, we do have a new Veterans Service Officer, Stephen Bobian, and I think that what our commitment is, and I think we all feel this, given the fact that our armed forces has been in active combat situations for the last 15 years, is that supporting them, supporting their families is very important. And for many of us, we are generational families that have service. And so, you know, making sure that we honor and do our best to serve them after they serve us is really important. And so having veteran service officers who are doing that work and being the liaison between folks that have served in the armed forces and the benefits that they have earned by the nature of their service is really important, because as we all know, accessing benefits is not always a clear-cut process, and it is very complicated. And we are also addressing folks who have come back, you know, having challenges and issues, and providing them services is the least we can do for them. And so, so this has been one of the areas that the county has focused on. We changed our service delivery model by having it go to Clatsop Community Action. And I will say that at least from what we have seen, it is a service model that is working well for the county. And so we will continue to make this a priority and continue to serve those. Thank you.
Thank you, County Manager. And I know that the reason we're having this meeting today is next week, November 11th, is Veterans Day. And so I know we have more than one veteran here, but I'd like to thank our County Manager for his service when he was in the Marines. And you also have some sons that are serving. Is that correct? Or you have one and maybe one that will be soon?
Yes, I have one son that is ending his 3-year tour over in England, hopefully coming home soon. And then I have a son he's a 3rd-year Air Force ROTC cadet, so he will be commissioned in another year as either a Space Force or an Air Force officer. So.
And Assistant County Manager Steele, I saw your hand go up. What is your relations with the Armed Services?
I did not serve, but my husband, my father, my grandfather, and my uncles on both sides of my family have all served, and the majority of them have all been in the Navy.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nevaker.
Yeah, my father served, my uncle served, my grandfather served, my great-grandfather served in the Civil War, or great-great-grandfather. I had my ancestor also served in the Revolutionary War. But what I wanted to say is I am so glad that we have this service in our county. It wasn't always so. And it wasn't always so that the military gave the services that they do now. Quite often what happened is people would come out of the military and they just push them out and say, well, there you go, after they'd been at war and suffered and seen terrible things, and just expecting them to reintegrate into society. And people didn't understand a lot of the things that they were experiencing. And I'm just very grateful that we have much more awareness now and that we have services. I know it's imperfect, and I know that there's more to be done, but I'm really glad that we have what we have and that our county has really stepped up.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Nevaker. And I see that Stephen Bobian is on the call. Stephen, did you want to add anything to this?
Sorry, I missed the last half or the first half of the conversation. What was the question in regards to?
Well, we knew that there was a little confusion, and we thought that maybe you wanted to say a few words about the proclamation that we're doing tonight. Our county manager spoke about the kind of nature of your job, that you are there to help seniors. I mean, not seniors, but to help veterans.
Definitely.
And it's okay.
Yeah, and so since I've arrived, I've definitely noticed a very large surge of not only veterans calling, but new veterans that we've never seen before. And that was just with a little bit of advertising. And so far, my plan is to continue to conduct outreach. I'm giving a briefing at the Elks Lodge in Seaside as far as what a VSO is and what do I do, and just to answer questions in general. But I think that it's going very well. Getting around 10 to 12 phone calls a day to return, so good problems. But yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. I'm really enjoying the position.
Well, thank you, Stephen. And Stephen, my faulty memory tells me, but have you also served in the military?
Yes, I was in the Coast Guard for 8 years.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for the good job that you're doing for our county.
I really appreciate it.
Okay, so we have a proclamation coming up, and I've asked Commissioner Webb, who's is from a Coast Guard family, and Commissioner Webb, was your father a career Coast Guard person?
He was. And I have an uncle and a cousin who are graduates of the Naval Academy. And my father's father, relative to Commissioner Nevaker's comments, my father's father was actually killed while on active duty in the Navy in 1906. And my grandmother, who never remarried, didn't receive any benefits until 1924. And in the meantime, raised 2 sons. And so I've kind of watched over the course of the 20th century as veterans' benefits increased. And, you know, the GI Bill in the 40s was just enormous. I mean, it educated a whole generation of Americans. And we continue to add services for veterans that I think is very important, because their veterans' exposure to different forms of harm varies with technology and other things. So I think it's important for us to always kind of be on top of making sure that our veteran services are appropriate for the times.
Thinking about,
Chair Sullivan, we can't hear you.
oh, I'm sorry. Before you read the proclamation, Commissioner Thompson, you said your husband has served quite a long time. Did you want to make any comments about that?
28 and a half years. I have uncles, and I have their 2 battle flags that were handed out. So when I go to the ceremonies, I have a flag for each arm. So I carry my uncles with me. It's very touching. Thank you.
Thank you. And my brother-in-law served in the first Gulf War in the Navy. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Commissioner Quila, did you want to make a comment or?
No, I'll just say that my dad was a proud Marine during the Korean War.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you.
And I should add that the flag that I hang out on important days is the flag that flew over the U.S. Capitol the day my father retired from the Coast Guard after 42 years, I think, was his total service. So lots of wonderful mementos like those. Okay, are we ready? Okay.
Yes.
The Board of County Commissioners for Clatsop County, Oregon, in the matter of proclaiming November 8th to 14th, 2020 as Veterans Service Week. This is a resolution in order. Whereas in 1919, President Woodrow Wilson declared November 11th as Armistice Day, the precursor to Veterans Day. And whereas America has more than 18 million living veterans of the Second World War, Korean War, Vietnam War, Persian Gulf War, and conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as smaller engagements and peaceful deployments. And whereas more than 4,000 veterans of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard call Clatsop County home. And whereas the example our nation's veterans set throughout their lives is a testament to the drive and perseverance that define the American character. And whereas federal, state, and local governments, in recognition of veterans' unique contributions, have established programs and benefits providing healthcare, education, tax credits, employment assistance, and more. And whereas Clatsop County has committed to support local veterans' access to these services through its Veterans Services Officer Program. Now therefore, the Board of Commissioners of Clatsop County proclaims November 8th through 14th, 2020 as Veterans Services Week to promote greater awareness of services and benefits available to our military veterans, and urges all citizens to honor and support those who have worn America's uniform and the families who stand alongside them. Dated this 4th day of November 2020, signed for the Board of Directors by Chairperson Kathleen Sullivan.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. And once again, thank you, Stephen, for being here and bringing that to us. Thank you, commissioners. Okay, the next, I'm sorry, was there a comment? Okay, next thing on our docket is resolution on diversity. And as you know, that I'm very happy to have the bilingual pay option that we now are policy on our board. And I also know that we have a commitment to hire and keep in mind the need for diverse workforce in the county. And because all of our communities are changing and we need to be inclusive. So for this proclamation is from the Board of County Commissioners from Clatsop County, in the matter of proclaiming to affirm Clatsop County's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and actively fostering a community where all are accepted, valued, respected, and safe. Resolution in order. Whereas the government of Clatsop County is of and for all the people of Clatsop County. And whereas Clatsop County has a moral and legal obligation to provide all residents with equitable access to the county's public resources. And whereas Clatsop County values people of all races, ethnicities, socioeconomic classes, disabilities, faith, genders, gender identities and expressions, sexual orientation and nationalities. And whereas Clatsop County promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion, and recognizes the inherent value and dignity of all individuals, groups, and perspectives. And whereas the Board of Commissioners rejects discrimination, bias, or exclusionary acts or policies towards marginalized groups and toward any people. And whereas such discrimination undermines the health, welfare, prosperity, and peace of the entire community, it is counter to the fundamental belief that all should be treated with respect, compassion, and grace. And whereas it is the policy of Clatsop County that no person shall be denied the benefits of or be subjected to discrimination in any county program, service, or activity. And the county also requires its contractors and guarantees to comply with this policy. And whereas the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners seeks, through its policies and actions, to embrace and celebrate diversity, equity, inclusion, and mutual respect. And whereas the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners is committed to protecting the civil and human rights of all. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Clatsop County and the Board of Commissioners implores everyone to act at all times in ways consistent with the values of civility, compassion, fairness, equity, inclusion, and justice for all. And that's dated on this day of the 4th day of November 2020. And this is on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners for Clatsop County. And I want to thank the county manager and the staff for writing that very elegant resolution. We appreciate that. And I think that those are the kind of values that I'd like to see repeated every single year. So I encourage the next board to consider that. And I also like to open this up to any comments by the rest of the commissioners. And I'd also like to thank Commissioner Quila for encouraging us to move this along. So thank you, Commissioner Cuela. Commissioner Nevaker?
Yes, I thank you. I really appreciate this, and for all the work that went into it. And I hope that that I agree that I hope that it will continue with the future board. And I wonder if this is something that's found in other counties. I hope so. Or are we one of the first in the state?
I think, Commissioner Nebaker, I think that many counties, many cities, many special districts are becoming increasingly aware of the need to make it clear what the commitment is from government to its residents. And so I think it is becoming more common, and I think it will become increasingly common, because I just think there's a recognition that we have to state what our values are on a regular basis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, County Manager. Okay, let's now move into business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda except public hearings or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
Yes.
If you have registered to speak, please wait until your name is called, then give your name and address for the record. You will have 2 minutes to speak. And Clerk of the board, can you run the public meeting, the public comments for us, please?
Yes. Andy Davis.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm Andy Davis. I live at 376 3rd Street in Astoria. Good evening, commissioners, staff, and members of the public. Tonight, I come before you in my capacity as chair of the Clatsop County Democratic Central Committee. We wish to express our appreciation to the commission and the staff of Clatsop County for the smooth administration of the November 3, 2020 election. First, we commend the addition of ballot drop boxes in new and diverse locations throughout the county. After some COVID-related complications with ballot drop sites in the May primary election, we believe that the county response for this election was appropriate and well implemented. We applaud any attempts by the county to make voting more accessible for our residents, and increasing the drop sites from 2 to 7 was a wonderful step to take. Additionally, our county party, based on the advice from the Democratic Party of Oregon, implemented an election observer program during this cycle. Throughout the signature checking and counting process, we often had trained observers in the room with county staff and election volunteers to watch for any irregularities. Through the whole of the election cycle, nothing was reported to me as amiss, and that is comforting in a time when our election process has been under unusual scrutiny. Finally, it was both my personal experience and the experience of our observers that staff of the Clerk and Elections Office were consistently gracious and professional. Staff did their best to answer questions and also did an excellent job of keeping up best practices for health, safety, and election integrity while interacting with our volunteers. Thank you. We appreciate your continued good work.
That's the end of public comment.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Davis. I appreciate your elegant comments, and I very much agree. So, so we are now moving on to I'm sorry, any other comments? Okay.
No.
Let's now move on to the business. Thank you, Clerk of the Board. Let's move on to the business from the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? I know, Commissioner Nevaker, you had a question about that. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. On page 70, there's an error on line 23, where it says the planned completion date for the jail is now January 2020. I believe that should be January 2022.
Is it 22 or 23?
Oh.
What is the completion date for the jail?
It should be 2022.
22, okay.
So
So,
with that correction, I would move that the board, that we approve the consent calendar.
Commissioner Thompson seconds.
okay. All those in favor, say aye, please. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, that's Commissioner Quila. Okay, so that's unanimous with the amended consent calendar. Okay, thank you very much. Now we will move on to the commissioner's liaison reports. Who would like to start there? Commissioner Thompson, would you like to go?
Sure thing. I got to go to Lyons, Oregon and look at millions of dollars worth of equipment and see how they can build mass plywood panels, including columns that are 24 inches by 24 inches that have more wood in them that sequesters carbon than a solid beam. So it was fascinating to me. As part of the continuing conversations that I'm having with people, I spoke with Professor Shine of the Tallwood Institute, and she connected me with Jim Archuleta, who's from the USDA Forest Service. He's sent out an email, which I've just passed on to the county manager and a bunch of other folks, about biochar. So looking at maybe if we can get biochar in the county so that we can sift and sort through all of the piles of slash so we don't just burn them, because it's better for air quality. It's more complete use of forest products, and it's just an all-round good conversation. Just looking at ways that we can increase the wealth that we extract ecologically and sustainably from our forests, because you'll remember that forests sequester carbon both as the trees are growing and then as the forest products are used, whereas concrete and steel create much more of carbon emissions as they are produced. So how can we live on the planet? How can we have a good economy? That's the focus of what I'm doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Nevaker, would you like to go next?
I have nothing.
Thank you, Commissioner Nevaker. Commissioner Webb, would you like to go next?
Yes, I have been spending an awful lot of time on the resurrection of the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority. And the best news of the week is that we found the $975,000 that is the trust fund that was created in the early 90s. And I'm going to be asking our county council to help me to figure out how to make sure that now that we have found this is one of these crazy things that I learned in the last couple of weeks, is that housing authorities typically have many bank accounts, and our housing authority has 82 bank accounts. You know, for people who are budgetarily challenged like me, you can imagine what reading our financial reports is like. But we found this money. There was some question about whether or not, it was still in existence, and so we have it. It will be put into a special account, and it must be used to increase the supply of affordable housing in Clatsop County. And we will be working to leverage that money to the greatest extent that we possibly can. And otherwise, we're very happy with the consultant we have hired to do sort of a monumental retasking and also an interim director. And so we're feeling we have a meeting tomorrow at which we're going to be doing a lot of amendments to the bylaws to make sure that we're operating appropriately and within the letters of the law. And so I'm feeling very, very good about all that energy. I think that's it. Unless you'd like to see a picture of one of my grandsons in his lion Halloween costume. I mean, I can put it on the screen if you want.
I don't have any problem with that. Commissioner Thompson.
I think Commissioner Nevaker's hand was up first, but I'll follow her if it's all right, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Nevaker?
Yeah, I'm curious, Commissioner Webb. So this money, this is one account that and I don't really understand why it wasn't known where it was. I'm assuming this is the amount that is held in trust because it's so close to that amount. And is that right? Okay. And you said it's going to be leveraged, but it can't be touched. It can't be used for anything. That's
Oh, yes.
Yes, what?
Oh, yes. It can be. It is intended to be leveraged more than anything else. It can't.
Yeah, not spent down, right?
Right, which means we have to be very smart about what we do with it and about our ability to invest it, to grow the money. I'm particularly disappointed because this is an amount, $925,000 was put into the account in the early 90s, and it has only grown by about $50,000 in that time. But with the help of our council, we're going to be exploring what we can do with the money and the extent to it. It has actually been used for the last about 10 years as collateral on a property that we had to borrow money to renovate. And so that's an excellent leverage, but we are, I certainly hope that we're going to be able to be as smart as possible about how we're going to spend this money. And it is set in stone that we must create a committee of citizens to sort of be responsible. That's not the right word, but to advise us on how to spend the money. And
okay. So we had that before and we got into trouble, and this is why we got into trouble with the state, and this is why it was dissolved, and why we then got out of this. We merged with NOAA.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that we're not going to just go backward. I'm a little curious about all of this.
Well, if I could just, if it's okay, Commissioner Webb, I'll just, so this is an actual trust that is held by the Housing Authority, and it is administered by the Housing Authority. And there's a citizen committee that is required as part of the lawsuit settlement. And so the Housing Authority is the one administering it. So it's not the county board, it'll be the Housing Authority board with the input of the citizen committee. So if that helps.
Does that help, Commissioner Nevaker?
Well, as long as I suppose it isn't the county's responsibility and solely, because I just remember when I first came on the board, it was it was a big problem.
Yes, so
Because
the
the Citizens Committee, they were making a lot of recommendations and decisions, and it didn't go well. It was not clear. It was not transparent. They were doing things that shouldn't have been happening. Anyway, I'm sure that won't happen again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Webb, can you mute yourself till we call on you again? Okay, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would suggest that it's time for us to have a work session on NOHA. I'm surprised to hear money was lost because I remember 6 years of reports that talked about the trust fund and the problems that Commissioner Nevaker is referring to. You know, this has been gnarly before. I trust that if we have a work session, we will have a complete understanding of where the money is, how it is to be overseen, how it is to be used, and we will be able to provide clear accountability to the taxpayers in Clatsop County and to our other stakeholders who have an abiding interest in this. So I would hope that we get this on our work session agenda, please.
I would welcome that because there's the NOAA, the entity is very active right now. And I would love for you all to be briefed about all the pipeline projects that we're looking at and to have a level of satisfaction in the processes that the board is now going through. And our county council is completely familiar, et cetera, with the present situation.
Okay, thank you. I think those are great suggestions, and I'm sure the staff will get back to us as to when they can schedule that work session either this year or next year. So thank you very much. I appreciate that report. Commissioner Quila?
No, I'd welcome that as well. I'd like to get a little more informed about what's all going on at NOAA, and I don't have anything else to report.
Thank you, Commissioner Quila. For myself, like I said in the last meeting, I have accepted a position as the executive director with the Astoria Warming Center. And housing, of course, is everyone's concern, but those of us who work with the unsheltered, we are all interested in getting housing too. So whatever we can do to increase the capacity in our county, that'll be wonderful. I just wanted to make a couple comments about this election season. And unfortunately I didn't have time to write this down, but I was thinking today about how much courage it takes to sign your name up and run for election. And I just want to congratulate all the candidates who have run this year. And I also know I've been on both sides of any kind of campaign, well, local campaigns. And I also know that there's a tremendous amount of work that's involved with raising money and getting out the news of your candidate. And it's a tremendous effort. And I appreciate everybody that's connected with these elections and getting people into office. I think that it's such a vital part of our democracy to have individuals represent their neighbors in all levels of government, from school boards to health boards to elected state offices, county offices, city offices. And I just really want to say thank you for doing that. During this election cycle, I met some incredible people in my own campaign, but also talking to people that I've been helping in other campaigns. It's amazing the amount of dedication that's involved with getting people into office. And I again want to echo what we've said during the work session. how proud I am of Clatsop County and how they handled this election. And I can't say it more elegant than Mr. Davis did, but we have a lot to be proud of here in Oregon and also in Clatsop County. So I just want to appreciate all the hard work that went into that on the staff's part and the volunteers and stuff. So thank you. And another thought that I had today is I guess I've been fortunate in the times that I've lived in different parts of the country. I've lived downtown in metro areas. I've taught in metro schools. I'm in urban schools. My class load was, usually every year was between 130, 140 students. I've taught in schools that had thousands of students in one building. And I've also taught in small rural communities. But when I was teaching in all these different areas, I was also living in all these different areas. And one of the things that I've heard a great deal about in this election, nationwide and locally, is the talk about the urban-rural divide. And I really would like to encourage all of us to start thinking about that maybe that's a false narrative. When I think about my different times in my life that I've lived in the city or lived in the rural, it was all the same thing. I had friends that I cared for. I have family that I cared for. I needed a job. I worked a job. I wanted to live someplace decent. I worried about the price of food. Cost of gasoline affects somebody that works in the city as much as it affects somebody who lives in the rural area. Although oftentimes a rural area may have longer periods of distances to drive. But I mean, my sister who lives in Los Angeles used to call me back before you were, well, I guess you can't talk on the phone if you're, but she would call me. Years ago, I remember her calling and I said, Mary, you can't talk to me when you're in traffic. And she says, I've been sitting here for 45 minutes. So in urban areas, they spend hours commuting. And I just think that it'll be best for all of us to start looking at each other not as partisans, not as other members of other parties, but to start looking at each other again as neighbors and friends and family members, and that we are heading into some difficult times, no matter which way you want to shake it. This state, because of the catastrophes that we face, we are going to have some economic hard times, and we're going to have to be creative and continuing to serve the people that our governments serve. I've served 4 years on the Northwest Senior Disability Services. Seniors have a great deal of needs. Children and schools have a great deal of needs. So how can we work together and do the best for our friends and families in our communities? And that's the message now that this election period is over. I really am hoping that leaders on all levels, nationally, statewide, community level, will start promoting the idea once again that we have to hang together and to help each other and to love each other and be compassionate. And I think that's the biggest heartache that I've had watching so far is the division. Life is hard enough. We just need to hang together. So, excuse me. Well, that's all I have, County Manager. Next, please.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I appreciate your comments as a longtime public servant. So just real quickly, I know that Mr. Davis and the board has mentioned the election just in this public meeting. I just want to also mention the dedication of staff, both the county clerk staff as well as the temporary election workers, and the great job that they continue to do as they work through to final certification of the election. I wanted to let your board know that the City of Astoria City Council did adopt the tobacco retailing license ordinance this week. And so on behalf of the city, the Public Health Department will be executing that ordinance within the city boundaries also, which is what the goal was when your board originally adopted that last year. So, so we are making progress even during COVID and elections, still moving those issues forward. And a reminder that next week we'll be having a work session on the strategic plan. Teresa has sent out some materials, and then Terry Moore will be sending out the actual presentation directly to your board next week. So, and then real quickly, Dr. Mike mentioned this, but we are having conversations with CMH about partnership with them to help expand access to community testing as we move forward. And so I just want to just mention that. And, you know, COVID is going to be with us a while. And as I repeatedly say, we keep having to kind of reinvent ourselves and our response as we go through this. And so this is just another iteration of that process. And I think I will end at that. Thank you.
Thank you, County Manager. So let's move on to the next, which is the public hearing. And I understand that our County Council, Joanna Lyons Atlee, would like to make a couple comments about this before we actually go into that.
Sure. I just wanted to note that in your packets, you have the ordinance, but you don't have the proposed adopted land and water development and use ordinance standards document. It was more than 600 pages, and I think the last time we talked in work session that it may not be something that you wanted as a full packet. So it is available on our website, and I think Teresa could probably say exactly where, but for the public's purposes for tonight, you're going to be going through and doing a first reading, and then the final version we'll still have to work out some details for that, but it will also be available. So there's two opportunities for the public to comment on this proposed ordinance.
Thank you, Joanna. And I just know there's just been a tremendous amount of work put into this, and I really appreciate that. And let's get this tied up. Gail Hendrickson, would you like to have any comments made on this?
Just briefly, Commissioners, thank you. Again, Gail Hendrickson, Community Development Director. This was a work session item that we presented to the board on August 4th, which I know is 100 COVID election months ago, but it's a project that's actually been in the works since August of 2018 when we first presented the project to the Planning Commission. The purpose is not to change any regulations, so I want to be very upfront and clear about that with everyone. The only purpose of this was to take our two documents that we use in the planning world, the zoning code and the standards document, and to merge them into one, reorganize them, update some of the terminology, which is 40 years old, and to really make it just a little bit more user-friendly for both planning staff, but also residents, contractors, and everybody else who has to dig into the code in order to do anything on their property in the county. I am happy to answer any questions, but I especially want to thank planning staff, Julia Decker, Ian Sisson, and Victoria Sage, who did put a lot of work into this project. And also thank you to Joanna, who spent well over a month going through the combined document to make sure that we hadn't missed anything or left anything out inadvertently. So thank you again to everyone, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gail. And before we have staff ask questions, I forgot to read a couple lines here. I'm going to read. This is the time set for a hearing on Ordinance 20-03, combining the land and water development and use ordinance and the Clatsop County standards and document. And thank you, Gail, for that staff report. And Commissioner Thompson, did you have a question?
I'm gonna put a question in here, but it's really a comment. This is the kind of painstaking work that ought to qualify you all for sainthood, I would say, because it's essential for people to understand what it actually means, and you have made that possible. Do you have any estimate of the number of hours that it has taken to produce this document? I mean, I just can't imagine. It must be thousands.
It really wasn't that many, although I appreciate the thoughts. A lot of it was cut and paste, but the tedious part that took the most time was making sure that all the cross citations were updated and putting all that together. So that took some time, but it really wasn't as bad as I would really like you to think. But
I'm impressed. It will make life easier for everybody going forward who wants to do things in Clatsop County through your office. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Anyone else? Okay, I will now open the public hearing. Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public signed up to speak?
No, there are not.
Okay, then we will continue the public hearing to December 9th, our next Board of Commission meeting. Thank you so much, and congratulations to the staff for all their hard work on this. It's good job. Thanks.
thank you.
So the next thing is the business agenda, and number 14, 2020-2022 collective bargaining agreement with Federation of Parole and Probation Officers. May we have the staff report, please?
Sure. Good evening, commissioners. In front of you tonight is the labor agreement between Clatsop County and.
Stiles. Could
Yes.
you identify yourself?
Oh, sure. Hi, my name is Kelly Stiles. I'm the Human Resources Director. Apologize. So as I was saying before you tonight is the labor agreement between FAPO and Clatsop County, which is retroactive to July 1st, 2020, effective through June 30th, 2022. It was an interesting negotiation process with COVID, and I just would like to thank Sheriff Phillips and Under Sheriff Williams and his staff to work through this via email and many phone calls, and also our labor attorney, Adam Collier, to make this as easy a process as possible. The key items that came up during this negotiation is an increase in life insurance and accidental death and dismemberment insurance for the bargaining unit, which is comprised of 7 individuals. This puts them into the higher tier of benefit for accidental death and life. It's an existing tier for other employee groups as well. So there's a minimal financial impact overall. Additionally, as a result of this negotiation, as Commissioner Sullivan said, we now have a bilingual policy that is countywide, not just for the FAPO represented group, but for the entire county. So that's been quite a success as well. So that is my summary. I'll take any questions that you might have.
Okay, it looks like I am seeing no questions. That must mean you did a fantastic job, Ms. Stiles. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
May we, Commissioner Nevaker, would you like to?
Yes.
I would like someone to entertain a motion. Commissioner Nevaker, please.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan. I move that the board approve the 2020 to 2022 collective bargaining agreement between Clatsop County and Federation of Parole and Probation Officers, and authorize the chairperson to sign the agreement.
Commissioner Thompson.
Webb,
Do I hear a
second.
which one was that? That was first. Commissioner Webb seconded, thank you. Okay, any comments? Any discussion? Okay, clerk of the board, may we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nevaker,
Aye.
Commissioner Webb,
Aye.
Commissioner Quila,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Okay, so it passes unanimously that we have approved the motion to approve the 2020-2022 collective bargaining agreement between Clatsop County and the Federation of Parole and Probation Officers, and authorize the chair to sign the agreement. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on now to business item number 15, matching funds grants for the Arch Cape Water District. This is on page 305 of your agenda. May we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Chair and Board. My name is Joanna Lyons-Antley. I'm the County Counsel. I was asked to present this proposed matching funds grant for the Arch Cape Water District. Much of this happened before I arrived here, since it happened in 2019, but I am assured that you all know much about it. So I will just briefly give you the facts and tell you about the proposed grant agreement. So in 2019, the Arch Cape Water District asked the Board of Commissioners to provide a local match. In the June 26, 2019 board meeting, your board increased the contingency within the Special Projects Fund by $250,000 to allow the board to have a future discussion about the match. This is the time for that discussion, by the way. And so the Arch Cape Water District, they entered into a purchase and sale agreement to purchase 1,500 acres of timberland located in the headwaters for the district. The proposed purchase is for the creation of a community forest and protected watershed for roughly $5.35 million. To help fund the purchase, the district was awarded a $1 million grant by the United States Forest Service Forest Legacy Grant. The district must acquire a match equaling 25%, hence the $250,000. I drafted this proposed grant agreement that would hold the $250,000 match in an escrow account to be drawn upon by the district should the district be able to complete the purchase. Because as you can imagine, they've raised part of the money, but we're hopeful that they'll raise all of the money. And so that is why the proposal would be to hold it into an escrow account. All of the escrow fees would be paid for by the district. And if the purchase falls through, they would make us whole, reimbursing us those costs of escrow costs and fees. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, County Counsel. Questions? Okay, thank you so much. I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Thompson moves that the board authorize the chair to sign the grant agreement with the Arch Cape Water District to provide the $250,000 match for the $1 million Forest Legacy Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Was that, I didn't see who did the second.
Commissioner
Okay,
Nevaker.
Commissioner Nevaker. All right, thank you, Commissioner Nevaker. Any discussion?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Quila. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I know we had a pretty lengthy discussion about this back in 2019 during the budget meeting. A lot of the discussion was about what kind of precedent it sets. And I still feel the same way as I did back then. I just don't think that this is something that county taxpayers should be doing. I think that the special districts have their own mechanisms in which they can raise money for this type of acquisition. I certainly understand the enthusiasm for the project and give them the credit for the pursuit. I just don't think that this is something that the that the county should be funding. So I'm opposed to it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Aquila. Commissioner Nevaker?
I think it's important that we realize that when a government entity offers to help these districts, they can leverage this money to get a great deal of money, whether it's in our social services or in this situation. And I know that this is a lot of money and it is unusual, but I think they have been working to raise money, and this is just helping them be able to do this. And personally, I believe that protecting water quality and preservation is vital, and I think it will be even more so going forward. And I think it's a good partnership myself.
Thank you, Commissioner Nevaker. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand Commissioner Aquila's concerns. I think it's important that we're good stewards of the taxpayers' money all over Clatsop County. And I also appreciate Commissioner Nevaker's concerns. This, in my mind, is being good stewards. I suppose every taxpayer says, well, what do I get in return for the tax money I pour into those county coffers? And for the folks in South County who haven't seen what we think is a lot of balance in return for the money we spend, I think this helps even the scales. Now, that may be a bit chauvinistic on my part. I hope you'll forgive me for that. This is, I think, a very good precedent to set, because what we're doing is setting a precedent that says we're going to help people be able to be responsible for the resources that they have to have in order to have a community. And that includes water, that includes wildlife, that includes plants, that includes fire safety, but even more importantly, it makes the Arch Cape Water District responsible for managing this Arch Cape forest in such a way that they produce the revenue that's required to pay for the money that they're borrowing. Oh, they're going to have to learn how to manage forests. That's going to be a very good thing. And they're going to guarantee all of these other community essentials that really make for good life here. So with great respect for the concerns raised by Commissioner Aquila, I'm very much for this project. I would say for people all over Clatsop County who might have a similar need or a similar request, I think we absolutely, as a governing body of the county, should be looking at needs all over Clatsop County, not just in one part of it. So I hope this isn't the last time we do something like this. I hope it's the first one that we do as responsible community stewards. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Well said. Commissioner Webb?
I think that next week in our strategic planning session, it will be revealed my great concern about the issue of quality and quantity of water in Clatsop County. If there is one thing that the comprehensive plan process has taught me so far, it is that we have been very cavalier in this county about creating the infrastructure that is very, very necessary for delivering water to our citizens. And that we can no longer just rely on our wonderful land use laws to preserve agricultural land if we don't have enough water to provide for our crops. This is something you're going to hear a whole lot about from me in the coming year. And I think this is a terrific opportunity for us to incite concern among local citizens about wastewater, drainage, freshwater, riparian preservation and resilience, because water, I think, is absolutely endemic. I think one of the first things you learn in graduate school as a planner is that since in the last 10,000 years, since people have been stationary to an extent, and is that the first thing, the first resource is the first most important resource for any community is fresh water. And I think that I hope this will attract attention from our citizens, that this is an issue they need to be concerned, involved, and planning for. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. I appreciate everything that's been said, and I understand that we have to be very careful about how our public dollars are spent. But just now, I just got a flash of the last time I was in New Mexico on my sister's ranch, and it was a drought year, and people were bringing their cattle down because there just wasn't enough water in the tanks. And the wildlife that my brother-in-law was saying that he was seeing that were suffering. So, and we can not underestimate the importance of water. And I think even in a rainforest, a subtropical rainforest, that it's a subtemperate rainforest that we have up here, we need to be respectful of our water sources, and I think it's a wonderful thing that we are able to help them to build up their water sources down in that area. I also want to give another advertisement for governance, in that this area of the county has multiple decades of working on an area planning committee, and so they have a long history of meeting together with neighbors and discussing problems and trying to figure out how to solve problems. And I think that even though that committee is no longer in motion, it has left a legacy of neighbors that are connected with each other and used to problem solving. And they've done a tremendous amount of work to get the money that they've gotten so far, and also improving their own water district. The words aren't coming to me right now, but so I'm glad that we're able to help them with this. And I also appreciate our county council and county manager, and I'm sure Monica also had things to do with this too, about how we set this up in escrow. I think it seems a very responsible way to manage this. So I myself want to thank everybody involved with the work that's involved with this, and I'm proud to support this measure. So any other comments? So we've had a motion and seconded, and if there's no more comments, clerk of the board, may we have a call for the vote, please?
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Nevaker?
Aye.
Commissioner Quila?
No.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry. So it has passed 4-1 to authorize the chair to sign the grant agreement with the Arch Cape Water District to provide the $250,000 match for the $1 million Forest Legacy Grant. Thank you very much. And so we'll now go on to any other comments before we move on to the good of the order? Okay, we'll now move on to the good of the order. Any comments or on the good of the order? Okay, I imagine that we've all had very long last couple days, so let's go have dinner and say hi to our family and friends, and thank you everyone for being here tonight.
Thank you.